Right, hello everyone. Welcome to another Second Nature webinar. Yeah, very festive one this time round. I'm just going to do a quick. Oh, I'm not Robbie, by the way, as you can all tell. I'm Rosie. I'm Second Nature's social media and community associate, so I'll be hosting this webinar. Thanks for having me. So I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So just a reminder that we can't see or hear you. So if you do just have this on in the background while you're cooking or going on a walk or whatever it is you're doing this evening, that's absolutely fine. And obviously the chat function is on at the minute. We will actually switch this off once Yancy is presenting, just because it sometimes messes with the format a little bit and changes the display. So if you do have any questions throughout, which we can't wait to hear, do just use the Q&A function. And then once Yancy's finished, we'll pop the chat back on and you can kind of chat amongst yourselves in there. And if there's any kind of feedback and comments aside from your questions, then that is the place to do that. Also, apologies in advance if we don't get to your question. Again, can't wait to see all the questions that you guys come up with. But obviously, we're a bit pushed for time, so we just won't be able to get through them all. But what I'm going to do is just keep an eye on the Q&A box, basically just see if there's some themes running through your questions, and then I can present these to the panelists, and hopefully we can answer as many as possible. So this session is being recorded as well. So this will be sent to you once we've finished. So before we get going, should we do some intros, guys? Yancy, do you want to go first?
Yes, lovely. Thank you so much, Rosie. So, hi everyone. My name is Yancy, and I'm one of the health coaches at Second Nature. I'm also a registered nutritionist. Believe it or not, I've been at Second Nature for almost 8 years. So,
Amazing.
this is like the fifth time that I do this webinar. I love talking about this topic. It's a big challenge the festive season, and I think it's just really great that there's so many of you today joining so that we can provide some tips on how to navigate this season. So yes, lovely to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Yancy. It's amazing to have your insight on this topic. Destiny, do you want to give a little intro?
Hello, I'm Destiny, and it's so amazing to see so many people here today. So I'm one of the health coaches at Second Nature as well. So if you're from my group, special hello to you. I joined the company in February, and I did my master's in nutrition and behaviour from Bournemouth University with two of the lovely ladies we're today, so Rosie and Nimra. So it's lovely to be amongst colleagues today. And yeah,
Indeed.
excited to answer your questions later.
Thank you, Destiny. And last but not least, Nimra.
Hi everyone, my name is Nimra and I joined Second Nature 3 months ago, and this is my third webinar. Pretty excited and look forward to your questions. I'm also one of the health coaches and a registered nutritionist, and I love helping all of you and supporting you in meeting your goals.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nimra. Right, let's go ahead and get this going. I'm going to pop the chat off. So yeah, just head over to the Q&A box if you've got any questions. But without further ado, do you want to take it away, Yancy?
Yes. Okay. Okay, lovely. So, welcome everyone to navigating the festive season 2025. Um, Today we are going to be focusing on awareness and strategies for navigating the festive season. So, I think we can all agree that this time of year can feel extremely challenging when it comes to healthy eating. And it's completely normal to feel like choices are out of control. Now, this isn't a failure on your part, it's how the environment, our emotions, and thoughts interact. So, today we're going to be exploring why making healthy choices feels difficult, but we're also going to be offering you 4 practical strategies to help you enjoy food and enjoy the festive season. I just want to remind everyone that the goal isn't perfection. It's about finding some strategies that reduce the need for restriction and guilt. And after I finish, then we're going to be delving into a Q&A. So Nimra and Destiny are going to be supporting me with that. Now, I know a lot of people that are here on the call today are Second Nature members, so welcome. I hope that there are some people that are in my groups as well, but there also know that there are some people that aren't Second Nature members, but everybody's welcome. But I just wanted to let you know a little bit more about Second Nature. So we are an app that makes weight loss feel easier and last longer, but I think that Second Nature is more than that. I think it's a program that supports your overall well-being, where we offer articles with actionable tips. We've got lots of delicious recipes designed for balance and enjoyment. We've got practical tools for habit formation, community support through group chats, and more importantly, everybody that joins Second Nature gets support from their own personal nutritionist. So that's somebody like myself, Nimra, or Destiny. And at Second Nature, we know that life is busy, right? And it's getting more and more complicated. And that's why we focus on habits and routines that feel doable. So we don't focus on strict rules or short-term fixes. And today we're really going to be focusing on habits and routines that will allow you to navigate the festive season without guilt, without restriction, and without obsessing over every choice. Now, let's take a step back and look at the festive season itself. Now, Christmas Day is just one day out of 365. What you eat on that day does not define your health. If we take a step back from that day, what matters is what you're eating and drinking throughout the year, is consistency over time. So today, I hope that you will give yourself permission to enjoy Christmas Day if that's something that you celebrate. It is meant to be a celebration. Now, what really happens and the real challenge are the weeks leading up to Christmas. And I think that we can all agree that we can all feel it, right? I don't know about you, but I feel like the festive season is starting earlier and earlier each year. So there's the work parties, there's the social events, and the constant exposure to foods everywhere you turn that just makes it feel like healthy eating is impossible. And I think it's really important to notice this buildup because if we don't notice it, then we don't know which strategies we need to put in place to make a change. And so I want to talk a little bit more about why it feels so hard to make these changes. And it's really important to understand why it feels so hard before delving into the strategies so that we can avoid that self-blame that usually happens when people join the program. One of the first things that happens is that I want everybody to think about is the environment. So during the festive season, temptation is absolutely everywhere. So anybody that goes into work, you go into the office, not only are the office parties going on, but there's always somebody bringing in some sort of treats or snacks or anything related to the festive season. Everywhere you go now, all of the coffee shops everywhere, there's festive displays and special offers that just makes it very easy to have those impulse buys. There's more social events, so dinners, drinks, celebrations, and there's just food absolutely everywhere. And I think that everybody that I notice in the chat, the weather, right? It's cold, dark, and these days naturally increase our cravings for comfort foods. So being surrounded by food has become that new norm. And struggling to say no to these foods is not a personal failing. So I think that that's something that I really want to everybody to remember that this isn't your fault. This is the environment that is just making it really difficult to make those healthy choices. Now, why it's so hard to make those healthy choices is also because of what's happening inside of us. So, if we think of all of the emotions that we're experiencing in that environment, the festive season triggers a range of emotions that impact our eating habits. So we might be in the office and enjoy a nice snack, but we might experience that guilt or shame after indulging. That might be as a result of the previous diets that we've done that say that certain foods are good and say that certain foods are bad. But we might also experience a fear of missing out, or we have a pressure that we want to please our others. We don't want to say no because it will be awkward. But we also know that the festive season comes with a lot of stress and a lot of overwhelm. So even though it's meant to be a joyful season, there can be financial constraints, there can be issues with family, lots of things that lead to stress and overwhelm, and we might seek out food for comfort. And as mentioned before as well, the winter blues that often increases our cravings for energy-dense comfort foods. So in a way, food can become a quick fix for comfort, right? Or a reward. And the thing is that it's everywhere. Now, what makes it even more complicated is that it's not only the emotions that we're experiencing when we're in that environment, it's also our thoughts. And the most common thought that we experience is that all or nothing thinking trap, where we would have, for example, a mince pie, which is something that usually comes out in the festive season, and we think, I've had the mince pie, I've ruined my day. Or maybe that meal out with your coworkers feels like a failure for that week. And that mindset makes small choices escalate into guilt and overconsumption. And it's really important to know that this type of thinking explains why willpower and motivation alone rarely works. And so what then tends to happen is that this is how the diet cycle starts to form. So you've got this environment where you're constantly exposed to food and pressure to indulge. You've got certain emotions that lead you to look for foods that will provide a quick fix. And then we have the thoughts, that all or nothing thinking. And the way that we think that we can resolve this is by restriction. And so we think, okay, I'm going to solve this by restricting food, but then that leads to overeating and we get trapped into this cycle, especially in the festive season when there's so much food around us. But today, I do want to provide a solution, and we can transform the way that we experience the festive season with these four skills that we're going to teach you. So, this isn't about restriction at all, but there's about these four skills. And the first skill that we're going to talk about is planning. So I think if you're a Second Nature member, you will probably have heard of the balanced plate model. And this is the foundation for breaking the restriction. So when we eat balanced meals that include a good source of carbohydrates, a good source of protein, vegetables, and healthy fats, we are going to be feeling fuller for longer. We're going to have more stable blood sugar levels, which means that when we're exposed to that environment, when there's foods that are high in energy and when the emotions are high, we are going to be able to make those intentional choices. So when I do this webinar, people always ask me, how do I stop myself from overeating? And so the way that we do that is by actually eating balanced meals. That's the only way that we can go about it. Because if we're constantly restricting and if we're constantly hungry, when we're in that environment with those sugary foods, that's what's going to lead to overeating. So the key is to focus on having these balanced meals using the balanced plate models. And the beauty of the balanced plate model is that you can use it anywhere you go. You can apply it at any situation and do the best you can to make the choices that the balanced plate model is suggesting. And when it comes to the Christmas meal as well, you can use your balanced plate model to guide your choices. And this is how you can be more intentional about your choices. And then when it comes to planning as well, I invite you to think about how you can plan your meals and also do something which I call factor in the foods that you enjoy. So here I've got an example meal plan. So it's a 7-day meal plan. You've got the days of the week and you've got the different meals. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are all second nature recipes. And as you will see for breakfast, it's okay to have the same breakfast every day if that reduces the decision fatigue. When we have a balanced breakfast and we start our day like this, it's going to make it easier to make healthy choices throughout the day. So if you think about starting your day with a balanced breakfast, and then you think about, okay, next I'm going to go out and I go to the train station and you see all of these triggers, you see food, you see all of these things telling you buy, consume, eat the sugary food. It's going to be a lot easier to avoid that because you're already going to be feeling full and satisfied. And the other way that you're going to avoid those kinds of triggers is that in your meal plan, you're including foods that you actually enjoy. So this isn't about rabbit food or having chicken and rice or anything like that. It's about having foods that actually bring you joy, actually bring you satisfaction. And this is why we're always going on about ensuring to include good sources of fat as well, because that's going to bring that element of enjoyment. So you're not constantly seeking that enjoyment with those processed foods. And so by having those balanced meals, then you can really be more intentional about your choices. And then what you're going to do is that, okay, I have all of my balanced choices, but I can also factor in the meals that I want to enjoy. And as you can see, that's how you achieve the balance is by factoring in the foods so you don't lead yourself by eating on autopilot. So this is just an example meal plan. It's obviously not one that you need to follow, but if you want, take a screenshot so that you can see how you might want to practice that. And I know that everybody plans their meals differently. So it might not be that you want to plan 7 days in advance. You can plan 3 or 4 days in advance, depending on your lifestyle or your routine. Now, the next skill that I want to talk about is about flexibility. Now, you need to have the foundation of planning before being flexible. And flexibility is all about progress over perfection. So it stops one small choice from becoming a ruined day. So this is where you're factoring things that you want, but it's also okay to say, you know what? I changed my mind if I didn't want something. Or it might be that you didn't plan to have the dessert, but you had it. But you're including that flexibility and you're allowing yourself to do things differently because you're already having your balanced meals. And that's why it's really key before trying all of the rest of the skills I'm going to teach you is to have those balanced meals in place. Now, the next skill that is really important is about setting boundaries. Now, when it comes to the festive season, we all know that peer pressure is real, right? Especially when it comes to alcohol. And I know that that's a really difficult thing to say no when we're surrounded by people that we care about that perhaps have, spent a lot of time preparing food. But it's okay to say no respectfully while protecting your goals. And if this is something that's completely new to you, then I would suggest to practice these polite phrases with somebody that, is close to you, that you feel safe and that you trust, because it can feel a little bit awkward at the beginning to say no. But if you've got specific goals that you want to work on and you genuinely have asked yourself, do I really want this? And the answer is no. It's also okay to say no, but sometimes we might need a little bit more time to practice how to say no. And remember, when you say no to food or alcohol, you're not saying no to that connection. So sometimes when we are experiencing, all of these social gatherings, we think that what is the important thing in the social gathering and why we're feeling so good is the food, but actually it's the connection and it's the connection to other people that is helping us feel good. But if you say no to the food, just remember that that connection that you're having with that person is what really matters. Now, when it comes to boundaries as well, two things to think about. Some people like to set limits, in particularly around alcohol. Some people like to say, okay, when I go out to this event, I'm going to have 1 to 2 glasses of wine or 1 to 2 pints of beer, whatever is your alcohol of choice. That's also okay. It's not coming from a place of restriction, but it's coming from a place of how to enjoy alcohol more mindfully. So that's one way where you can set limits on events, but also you can set limits on the actual number of events. So think about, how are these events draining your energy? Like, what kind of energy do you want to have this festive season? You don't have to say yes to everything. And you can also connect with people in different ways. If you don't want to connect in those big events, you can also connect with people in different ways and suggest alternatives as well. But it's really about practicing those boundaries while also, where possible, having that foundation of having those balanced meals. So, first, the foundation of balanced meals, then flexibility, and then the boundaries. If you're constantly feeling restricted and deprived, it's going to be really difficult to practice boundaries and flexibilities because we're going to be very hungry. It's going to be very hard to say no. So that's why it's really important as a first step to set that foundation of having a balanced meals. And then finally, the last skill that is really important is to practice some self-compassion. Now, setbacks are going to happen, right? We might go through the train station and we might have a mince pie and we had something that we didn't plan. It's going to happen. And the best thing that we can do is to talk to ourselves in the same way that we would talk a friend, with kindness, because we're not going to get very far if we're constantly criticizing ourselves. And we have to remember that one meal or one day doesn't define your progress. This is a journey that you're on and you're learning. And it's important to think about being kind to yourself. You can always use the next meal to look after yourself and to reconnect with yourself. But being kind to yourself is going to be really important, not only for the festive season, but also thinking long term throughout your journey. So, thinking about the festive season, the foundation is going to be planning. And the reason that planning is going to be so important is because you want to have those balanced meals that keep you fuller for longer, help your blood sugar levels keep stable, so that when you are in this environment where it's just noisy, chaotic, there's food everywhere, the emotions are running high, it's really hard to make a healthy choice when we're in that environment and the emotions are high. So if we have those balanced meals and our blood sugar levels are more stable, we can be more intentional about our choices, and then it can be a lot more easier to navigate and understand our emotions and really ask ourselves, what do we really need? So planning is going to be that foundation that then allows you to bring flexibility, boundaries, and self-compassion. So hopefully, this is all of the skills that you can practice. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people are probably thinking, I'm trying to lose weight and I'm going to have all of these, things that I really enjoy. What does happen if my weight does go up? It might happen, right? First, take a breath. This is normal. So, especially during the holidays, you're going to be eating different foods. There's going to be water retention, lots of things that influence our weight. But remember the bigger picture. The few pounds gained don't erase the progress and the different skills that you're also practicing this festive season. You have enjoyed moments that matter to you. You have connected with people that are important to you. And you have also maintained some healthy habits during a challenging time. So, what to do if the weight goes up is to return to your regular routine. The number one thing that I would say to avoid, try not to restrict. Go back to those meal plans, go back to those key foundational habits. There's no punishment needed, No extreme measures needed. Just go back to what works for you. And from anybody that's a Second Nature member, this is when it's really important to reach out to your coach, so your nutritionist. But I would say try to do that before this happens. Try to put an action plan together with your health coach on what you want to practice this festive season. Maybe you are already well versed in meal planning, but maybe you want to start practicing flexibility or boundaries. Everybody's going to have a different starting point, but what's really important is to discuss it with your health coach so that you can identify that blind spot and you can practice this festive season so it can see you through the year. And then next year, you're going to be like, this is what I learned that festive season. This is what I'm going to be doing in the festive season in 2026. So it's a journey. It's not these kind of things that short-term fixes or anything like that. So remember, the key skills are planning, flexibility, boundaries, and self-compassion. So I want to thank everyone for coming today. I want to wish everybody a lovely festive season from all of us at Second Nature. And we're going to move now to our Q&A, which I'm sure we've got lots of questions coming through. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yancy. That was incredibly useful. And a lot of it resonated with me personally, and I'm sure everyone feels the same. I think something that really stuck out to me was what you mentioned about the balanced plate model kind of being that foundation, because I think it almost acts as a bit of like a nice security blanket, which should give you the confidence to make those choices, knowing that it's not going to ruin your progress because you've had that balanced plate model so locked in, and that is something that you've been following, and also kind of takes the guilt away because it's like I know I've been doing that so well that if I make this decision it's not going to have some massive impact and it doesn't unravel everything that I've been working on. It's a decision that I've made mindfully and I feel good about that decision, so it's a really nice kind of cycle. And yeah, I love the metaphor of it being the foundation. um So, just to take it to our panelists, Destiny and Nimra, I wondered whether, I suppose, in keeping with this presentation and the themes that we've discussed, is there anything you're kind of noticing within your groups and amongst the members that have kind of started trickling in the last month or so as the festive season's been approaching, and the kind of things that people are concerned about or worried about in terms of maintaining their balance and progress?
Yeah, so something that I've noticed a lot in my groups, and something that has come up in the Q&A as well, is the idea of sort of loads of social gatherings going on and perhaps people offering you food and you feeling guilty to say no to that, because it's not maybe aligned with a balanced plate or it's not something that you would choose to eat yourself. So that guilt of like feeling rude to that person. So that's something that comes up a lot.
Yeah. And Nimra, what about you?
Yeah, I'd just like to add a common theme that even I'm coming across in most of my groups is that there are a lot of people, they're excited and they're looking forward to the festive season, but they're also um, slightly nervous about how to tackle this and how to navigate through the season, because they often say that, oh, my son is inviting us, so we have to, travel. And then, somebody's hosting them or they're hosting somebody else. And it's really something that they're nervous about. Another thing is the exercise, which they keep
Mm.
on saying that because everybody's together, it's like, a house filled with everyone coming together over food. And then how, despite all of that, managing all of that, how do they really incorporate exercise,
Mhm.
so that guilt of not
Yeah.
indulging in any kind of activity induces in them. So yeah, these are the two themes.
Yeah, a couple of things have come up in the Q&A about exercise actually. What's our kind of general advice as second nature? Because obviously our exercise patterns and behaviors can change a little bit when the seasons change as well, because it's obviously harder but it's such a mental boundary to kind of drag yourself outside when it's dark or that it's cold or it's raining. So, what are our kind of general guidelines when it comes to exercise and kind of adapting that around the seasons and Christmas?
So I would say that we have this amazing concept that I talked about in the previous webinar as well, where we talk about movement snacking. So if you're not able to incorporate or squeeze in a 30-minute workout, or you're not able to go to the gym, or you're not able to go outside the house and just do a brisk walk of, let's say, 20 minutes, it is absolutely fine. There's no need to be hard on yourself for not being able to do that. The way you can manage is it by incorporating movement snacking. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing that, but just try to incorporate any sort of favorite movement that you can do, maybe some jumping jacks while, everybody is, putting the dishes back in the kitchen, or just anything, and incorporate more people, because everybody is together. It's even more like it comes with much more enthusiasm when there are a lot of people together. So just incorporate and add more people in, invite them, let's do this quick activity, and whatever activity that you're doing in the day, keep doing it, but try to squeeze in any sort of favorite movement that you can during that time.
Amazing. Thank you, Nimra. Um, we had a question here, which I think is a pretty good point, just about it's not so much the meals, but more the Christmas snacking. And I think this is an interesting point because I suppose when you have a meal, there are several components and it feels more manageable to kind of keep that balanced, especially at Christmas. I sometimes think a roast dinner is actually a pretty balanced plate. Like you've got your protein, you've got lots of opportunities to include vegetables there, you've got some potatoes, which is obviously a complex carbohydrate. But it is when you're kind of faced with that table where you're chatting, there's lots of picky bits in front of you, and it's very easy to kind of mindlessly pick. And I'm wondering if there's kind of any advice about how to kind of approach that snacking and how to do that more mindfully as opposed to a meal, if that makes sense.
Mm, 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 mm. I think like with that, it's really important, throughout the day to listen to your hunger and fullness cues, and where possible, use the hunger and fullness scale to guide, when you're going to eat and how much of it you're going to eat. But also, like, if you can step back and consider what you have eaten. And it's going back to that kind of like structure as well. Like, how much of that structure and planning can you still keep in place so that it supports you to make choices later on when you have situations like that? When you have a buffet table like that, use the balanced plate model as well as much as possible and include the variety, but also check in with yourself once you've had it, but also, check in to see, are you eating because other people are eating or because you genuinely want it? And I think that's something that is important to come across for people to remember, is that it's about checking into what you're doing, because it's so easy for us to mirror other people's behaviors without checking in with ourselves. And that's what we want to be doing first and foremost, because it's the same thing that, we don't want to be dictated by a calorie counting or by sins or these things that are outside of ourselves. It's more about like, how does it feel for me? Have I had enough? Do I really want this? Do I really need this? And I think that that's something that we forget, and it's easy to forget when it's the festive season. But just checking in with yourself using the hunger and fullness scale.
Yeah, love that. And I was making some content earlier today actually just about using that two plate method when it comes to kind of buffet food and snacky food, because you can kind of help yourself to things that look lovely, your favorite things, what you anticipate you might be able to eat, and then use a second plate to kind of portion some off and then start with that plate. Once you finish that, check in with yourself and think, do I actually want more, or am I eating that because it's right in front of me? And things
Yeah.
like that can really help. Like I know obviously sometimes that might be a bit awkward if you're in a social situation and you don't want to ask for a second plate and things like that. But if you feel like that is something you can practice, I could imagine that being super useful because it just means that you're adding that layer of consideration of checking in and thinking, actually, I actually feel okay.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where we also want to be mindful of our alcohol intake because if we're drinking a lot, that's going to lower our inhibitions and we're going to want to eat more, but it's also going to impact us the next day, right? If we haven't slept well because we had a lot of alcohol,
Yeah.
how is that going to impact us? So when you are, using this two-plate method, also think about what did you do the day before that might be impacting you to
Mm,
eat more. So
so
thinking about
interesting.
your routines, your sleep, your alcohol not just the food, but also what you've done throughout the week. And if you're feeling stressed, but always constantly checking in with yourself, how you're feeling and how you're doing as an indicator of like, what is my choice?
Yeah, amazing. And there's a lot of questions in the chat just again touching on alcohol and how to navigate this. And I suppose it's a mixture of, I guess, the social pressure that we should be drinking in this season, again, tied in with that feeling of not really wanting to say no, feeling like you're missing out on that connection when really the connection was never about the alcohol, it was about the fact that you're with your friends, and just wondering whether maybe Destiny, if you've got any advice about, I suppose, handling that and whether you can kind of maybe start with an alcoholic drink and then move to a soft drink or alternate and those kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. So I think understanding what you want from the experience is really important. So don't be guided by other people's expectations of you. Like often it comes up, your friends might say, "Oh, you're so boring for just having
The
one or two
classic.
drinks." Yeah. I think really understanding that you know that you can have fun without drinking and not giving into that social pressure. And you can also make non-alcoholic drinks more fun and more festive. So, for example, I've given up alcohol this year. My last alcoholic drink was last Christmas. So I've like been making loads of mocktails and sparkling water with things like crushed blueberries and mint and cranberries for the festive season, so that it feels like you're involved and you're still having fun. You've still got that fancy drink in your hand, but it's not alcoholic. And it also draws less attention to you as well, if that's something that you're worried about.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think that is something to be, yeah, that you can consider because it's, yeah, it's not lying, but if you just turn up with a different drink, no one's going to ask you a question. They'll just assume that you're also drinking, and then it kind of, yeah, everyone's happy because no one's questioning your decisions and you're comfortable with the decision you've made. It's very in line with a couple of questions that are coming in actually. So someone's saying any suggestions about non-alcoholic um, drinks and mocktails, which I think you just mentioned some, Destiny. They sound like they might have been the second nature recipes actually.
Yeah, so I tend to recommend them also for if you're struggling to drink water, so flavoring your water. So I really like fresh fruit, so like
Mm.
citrus or those kind of things, and adding herbs that feel really seasonal, even some sort of cinnamon. I tend to veer away from like the sugary syrups and things in a lot of mocktails that you might get like at a bar.
Mm.
I would treat those kind of drinks in the same way as alcoholic ones, just because of that blood sugar spike. So still alternating with just plain water, or something without sugar. Non-alcoholic alcohols are an interesting one, I think, because some of them, depending on the brand, can still have quite a bit of sugar and they can still like spike your blood sugar. They're still a great alternative if you're trying to reduce your alcohol, but just being aware of some of, say, like the non-alcoholic beers and things,
Mm.
which may have similar amounts of carbohydrates, and that's just something to be mindful of. But with moderation, yeah, everything's fine.
Of course, yeah. I think a lot of people were picking up on that, just saying that even if they're going for non-alcoholic options, they obviously often ramp the sugar up, don't they, to make that kind of level of satisfaction that you would be getting from an alcoholic drink. So definitely something to be mindful of. I've got
Yeah, I
someone
also
asked.
wanted to add, Rosie,
Sorry,
about
Nancy.
that, about the alcohol. It's like,
Yeah,
if you're going to somebody's house, like it's also okay to let the host know that you're not wanting to drink. That's also an
yeah.
option. And you can also enlist support from your friends, right? Maybe somebody that is at the party with you, that you want that support of letting them know that you're not drinking, or somebody that you can text, and knowing that, it's also a change in identity. If you've been somebody that's been used to drinking at Christmas, it is going to feel different. So
Mm.
you're acting like a different person and you're making choices that support your health. So, it's okay to enlist the support of other people and letting them know until you feel comfortable in saying, like, I don't want it, just stop it. Because some people I know can be very persistent, are very good at it, and it can feel like very confrontational to say no, but enlisting the support of other people around you can also be a source of support.
100%. And I suppose it's twofold, isn't it? That feeling, because it's not only the kind of the mental association that alcohol, you tie a social situation to alcohol, which means that when you get into that situation, you instantly think about it or crave it. And then it's also the actual effect it has on your body and like lowering inhibitions and making decisions that you wouldn't usually make without it. So it is like a double-edged sword in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super interesting advice. I think two things that seem to be coming up in the chat a lot are fear, this kind of fear surrounding food during the Christmas period. And I suppose it's that sense of the unknown and kind of walking into a situation where you don't have as much control as you usually would about your food decisions. And also just guilt of like you're not following your usual habits, and I guess that internal struggle with yourself of I really want to enjoy the season, but I don't think that's a good food for me to be eating. And yeah, I just wondered if you had any advice about approaching that fear aspect.
I would like to say that if anyone has this fear about, particularly about around the festive season, you can always, if you've not done this before, you can always try doing meal planning.
Mm.
You can always plan your meals ahead of time, because I think that's a game changer. It can really keep you prepared about when the season is about to come. Secondly, when you go for your shopping, just have a shopping list prepared so that you know that you will go in a certain aisle to get the certain ingredients,
Mm.
right? And thirdly would be just batch cooking ahead of time. So when the event is there, when it is the dinner time, when everybody is coming together, it is absolutely fine even if you have one of your favorite sweet treats, or if you have just add up anything like Yancy said, just factor in that in your balance plate.
Mhm.
So you have your balanced plate, but you also have a sweet treat with it, maybe minced pie or whatever, brownie or cookie, whatever you like, which is apps. It's about adding that to the balanced plate instead of thinking of eliminating it or limiting it or restricting it, because that is going to um, make you feel pity. Like you want to feel pitiful about yourself that, oh, I did not, everybody was having it. Why didn't I have it? I could have had it. Um, and that's a very, very bad cycle. Sometimes what happens is that we, like you mentioned, Rosie, there's also people who have a certain food which they like, which is absolutely fine and absolutely normal. There's nothing wrong about it. But then they get into this guilt where they get into an extreme then to cope up with it. That's their counter reaction. So now they've had that mince pie, but now they're just going to be really hard on themselves, and they're
Yeah.
not going to have anything at all. They're going to starve, or they're not going to indulge in food at all. And instead of going back to the routine the next day, they're going to be maybe over exercising or just trying to counteract with that
Yeah.
with that. So which is why we suggest that it's absolutely fine that you have it, but then you come back to your normal routine,
Yeah.
you come back to your balanced plate. You can always compensate by going back to your original balanced plate and your routine. So yeah, I think this is something that I would say that it's fine that you have it. In fact, you should have it
Mm.
because, see, Christmas comes once in a year,
Yeah.
and one day is not going to outdo or outrun little efforts that you've been making the rest of the year, the 364 days. So it's fine that you can have it. But don't be hard on yourself if you had it, because when you completely restrict yourself, or you completely limit yourself from having your favorite sweet, that is going to put you in a lot of guilt. And the next time you see that favorite sweet treat, again you're going to fall into that traps. You might as well just relapse, and you're going to have maybe double the amount. Oh, I did not have it the last time. I'm going to have it this time, and you're going to have much more, which is your relapse, and then whole cycle continues again. So I think I would say, if there's anything um about food, don't be fearful about it. Just try to balance and get back to routine.
Amazing. That's brilliant advice. Yeah, it's the classic all or nothing thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as soon as you tell yourself that you can't have something, psychologically, you want it more.
Yeah.
So we're the only people that assign labels to food. They are not good or bad. They are not alive. We just decide whether they're good or bad. So as soon as you kind of reframe that, it can really give you some freedom. And as you say, just kind of returning back to those foundations can be super helpful.
And I think it's really important that people are, you're noticing that that's the thought process as well. So
So
remember,
true.
if you are noticing those thought processes, reach out to your coach, because the
Mm.
only way to change that is to reframe it. And the fact that you're noticing it, it means that it's no longer working for you. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I think it's great that people are noticing these thoughts that are hindering them from their making progress.
That's very true. I guess kind of recognizing. Sorry, Destiny, were you going to say something?
I think just putting that period into perspective as well can be really helpful. So I really like one of Yancy's slides, that pie chart of um, the whole year versus
Yeah.
Christmas. And I think it's what you do between New Year's and Christmas matters a whole lot more than what you do between Christmas and New Year's, in terms of your overall dietary pattern, and your progress. So just reminding yourself that even if you do indulge a bit, if you gain a little bit of weight, that doesn't set you up for failure. And it doesn't mean that you can't then change things and get back into your healthy habits after that period. So, yeah, I think just reminding yourself and having that like grounding can really help.
Yeah, brilliant advice. And there was something that came up as well, just I guess kind of penultimate question, um, was about kind of the seasons and how everything that brings up in terms of eating habits. So it's the darkness, it's the emotions, it's the cold, and obviously that completely changes the kind of things that we crave. Um, so I suppose, do you guys have any top recipes that you'd like to share or that you go to in the winter months that kind of give you that comfort and satisfaction, but as well as being balanced and kind of to support your goals as well?
I mean, it has to be the second nature mac and cheese.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. And then there's this tomato soup, which I love. It has cream. That one's really
So
nice.
good.
There's a tray bake as well. Any soups are nice. I
Mhm.
think anything warm and cozy that you can just hold
Mhm.
is very, very nice. I think those are my go-to. And I think for me, breakfast, 6 months of the year, porridge.
Yeah, 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 that is a win. A good win
So
of winter.
smoothies and yogurt for when it's warm, and then porridge for
Yeah,
when it's cold.
I love a good porridge.
Yeah.
Starts the day off in a warm way.
Yeah.
Destiny, any that you go to?
I think one of my go-tos is the chorizo and butter bean stew. I have that all year round, to be honest,
Oh,
and
it's so good.
it's
Yeah.
quick to make. So that's definitely like a really comforting food. Then for breakfast, I'm with Yancy with porridge. I think the spiced coconut porridge is the best thing ever. So yeah, I have that on repeat as well. And I think your series as well, like Comfort Without Compromise, is so helpful. Like to look at the recipes and sort of be drawn in by them. So I definitely recommend that on our socials.
Yeah, thank you, Destiny. Yeah, if anyone follows our Instagram, we've got a series going on at the moment, which is called Comfort Without Compromise, which is just me showing how we make our favorite comfort foods, but alter them a little bit so that they support our goals. So yeah, if anyone wants to check that out. There was also one more point that I wanted to discuss, which I think came up with Nimra, which is about what the supermarkets are like during the season, because I think that is a whole challenge in itself. The marketing is just crazy, the tricks that they use. And I suppose, did you have any suggestions about that? Because I just think it's so easy to be, especially when you're, I mean, food shopping is definitely not my favorite activity. I really don't like it. So I'm often trying to be in and out. You might be tired after a long day. You might be hungry when you're in there. And their product placement and the kind of psychological things they do to try and reel you in to buy things is yeah, it's relentless. So, do you have any kind of tips about navigating supermarkets at this time?
Yes, firstly, the hats off to the marketing strategy that they
Yeah.
use in order to captivate us with those colorful and vibrant aisles that they've set up at just right at the entrance of M&S and all
Yeah.
of those places. So well done for doing that. But we're strong enough, and we have trained our minds. Which is what matters. It's just a personal experience. I was talking to somebody about particularly this time, and they were saying how earlier they would gravitate towards the sweet products and the aisles which had a lot of sweet items because they had a sugary tooth. And they said that they've stopped going to the markets and they have started ordering online because they know what grocery they're supposed to get and they just get it delivered to their place instead of going to the aisles. And secondly, it's really about having your shopping list with you in your hand because then you know that this is what you have to get. Thirdly, if you're going, make sure that you are already full. You've had your balanced meal before leaving because when you go there and you are tempted, when you look at, the different products. So it's better that you are never go shopping, never do any grocery shopping when you're hungry at all.
Yeah,
This
a
is
top tip.
just very important. So yeah, I would say this is one way, two, three ways actually to navigate through that.
Yeah, that's coming back to Yancey's point. Well, one of the 4 points, which is planning, which is just
Yeah.
crucial this time of year.
Yeah. I think as
Um,
well with the supermarkets, I wanted to add is also
mm,
get to know your supermarkets and the tricks
mm,
that they do, right? So, like for example, I go to Lidl sometimes, and the bakery section, like the smell. Some supermarkets pump out more of that
yeah,
smell from when you come in. So that's where the list is going to be really important. But also checking in not just on how hungry you are, but also what kind of day have you had, because that's going to influence the choices that you're going to make. And also other things that supermarkets do is that they move certain things to different aisles. So one week it was in a certain aisle, the next week it's in another. So you're walking more and it makes you like lose where you are. So just get to know your supermarket and the different tricks that they're using because they will do whatever they can to get you to spend more money. So stick to the shopping list for sure, but just pay attention to that. And it's like if you put something in your basket that wasn't, it's like ask yourself, do I really need
yeah.
need this, or was it something that was, sometimes you look at your trolley and you're like, what is this? Like it's not
100%.
planned, you know?
I do think once you see it, it's really hard to unsee it, which is a
Yeah,
good thing. Like
yeah,
once you clock, right, okay, they've put that right by the checkout because they want me to grab it. You're like, aha, I'm onto
yeah,
you. I'm not going to fall for this. So you don't do
exactly.
it. And yeah, as you say, if you've been enticed to buy something because it's been reduced, which has probably been reduced the entire time, yeah,
Yeah,
just take a step back and think, would I have bought that if it was full price, or would I buy it again? Probably
exactly.
not. And then you
Yeah,
probably don't need it.
exactly.
Um, well, I think that probably, yeah, draws us to a close. Thank you so much again, Yancy and Dusty and Nimra, for all your insights. It's been so interesting. And just for the final couple of minutes, guys, if you've got any feedback or anything that you'd kind of like to for us to address in the future, whether that's on socials or future webinars, just pop it in the chat. Are you guys doing anything this evening? Anything nice? Anything festive? Watching a Christmas film, maybe?
I'm gonna try and see if I can go for a walk with my dog, but I don't know if
Oh,
that's going to happen. Maybe a short walk.
no. Well, there you go. Classic. Dark and cold.
Yeah.
It's hard. Right. Cool. I will leave it there, but thank you so much, guys. And yeah, have a
Yes.
lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rosie, and thank you everybody for coming. Have a lovely evening and festive season.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.